is a wild ride through the imaginative world of Professor Umbra
All right.
and her lectures at Academia Arcana. That's a magic school, by the way.
Oh, cool.
As we unpack her unique take on art and perception.
Mm-hmm.
9 dimensions of art.
9 dimensions.
I know what you're thinking. 9 dimensions sounds a bit intense, right?
Yeah.
But trust me, Professor Umbra breaks it down with a playful, whimsical style that makes even the most mind-bending concepts surprisingly approachable.
What's fascinating is how she uses this fantastical setting to explore these really profound ideas about how we perceive and interpret the world around us.
Yeah.
Like she's inviting us to step outside our usual ways of seeing and embrace a more expansive view of reality.
It's like she's handing us a new set of lenses.
Yeah.
And saying, go on, try these on for size, see what you discover.
Exactly.
And she starts with something deceptively simple.
Okay.
An apple.
An apple.
You mean like the one Newton supposedly saw falling from a tree?
Precisely.
Okay.
By choosing something so seemingly mundane,
Right.
Professor Umbra challenges our preconceived notions about observation.
Okay.
We think we know an apple when we see one, but what if we're only scratching the surface?
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this apple. Professor Umbra begins, as one might expect, with the familiar 3 dimensions.
Length, width, and height. So far, so good. But then she introduces dimension number 4, time.
And this is where things start to get really interesting. Instead of seeing the apple as a static object,
Right.
frozen in a single moment,
Yeah.
she encourages us to experience it as a process unfolding through time.
Okay.
From a tiny bud on a branch to a ripe, juicy fruit, and eventually to its inevitable decay.
So, like she's saying the apple contains its entire life cycle within it,
Yes,
even if we only see a snapshot in time.
precisely.
Wow.
And that leads us to the 5th dimension.
So.
Professor Umbra suggests that the apple isn't just what it is, but also everything it could be. It could be eaten, juiced, baked into a pie.
Right.
Its seeds could even grow into a whole new apple tree. So you're saying even a simple object like an apple
Yeah.
contains a universe of possibilities just waiting to be unlocked by the artist or the observer.
Exactly. Each possibility exists within the apple,
Wow.
even if only one path will ultimately be realized.
Right.
And that's incredibly powerful because it suggests that even the most ordinary object is brimming with hidden depths and unrealized possibility.
It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books. Each choice leads to a different outcome.
Precisely. And that sense of interconnectedness brings us to dimension number 6, relationships.
Okay.
Professor Umbra wants us to see how the apple connects to everything around it.
Okay.
The soil it grew in, the rain that nourished it, the sun that ripened it,
Right.
even the insects that might have nibbled on its leaves.
It's like a whole ecosystem revolving around this one apple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Professor Umbra is highlighting the importance of context.
Okay.
The apple doesn't exist in isolation.
Right.
It's part of a larger web of relationships.
Yeah.
And if we want to truly understand the apple, we need to understand its place within that web.
This reminds me of how we interpret art.
Yeah.
A still life of an apple isn't just about the apple itself,
Right.
but about its relationship to the other objects in the painting, the lighting, the composition. It's about the story those elements tell together.
Precisely. And speaking of interpretation, that leads us to dimension 7, perception.
Right.
Professor Umbra points out that how we see something
Yeah.
influences what it is to us. 2 people can look at the same apple and have completely different experiences
Interesting.
based on their individual perspectives, memories,
Right.
and associations.
So you're saying there's no one right way to see an apple,
Exactly.
or any work of art for that matter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Meaning isn't inherent in the object itself. It's
Okay.
created through the interaction between the object and the observer.
That's a pretty radical idea when you think about it.
Yeah.
Our own experiences, beliefs, even our moods shape how we interpret the world around us.
Which brings us to one of the most intriguing dimensions,
Okay.
the 8th, consciousness and reflection.
Right.
Professor Umbra suggests that the apple can act as a mirror to our own inner world,
Okay.
reflecting back our own thoughts, feelings, and memories.
So it's not just about what the apple is,
Yeah.
but about what it evokes in us.
Exactly. The apple becomes a catalyst for introspection,
Okay.
a way to explore our own inner landscape.
Right.
And this, I think, is where art becomes truly transformative.
Okay.
It's not just about passive observation. It's about active engagement with our own consciousness.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these dimensions add up to a much richer, more nuanced understanding of art,
Yeah.
even something as simple as an apple.
Right.
But what about the ninth dimension?
Ah, yes. The ninth dimension is where Professor Umbra ties it all together.
Okay.
She calls it collective knowledge and history.
Collective knowledge and history.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with an apple?
Well, imagine that apple carrying with it the weight of human history and cultural significance. Every bite, every drop of juice,
Right.
every image of an apple in art or literature throughout the ages
Wow.
all contribute to our collective understanding of what an apple means.
So it's like the apple is a vessel for all those shared experiences and accumulated meetings.
Yes.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it challenges us to see beyond the immediate, to recognize the interconnectedness of all things across time and culture.
Professor Umbra certainly doesn't shy away from big ideas,
No.
but she doesn't stop at apples.
Okay.
Now she wants her students to apply these 9 dimensions to something way more complex, a human being.
And this is where the real challenge begins.
I bet.
Because how do you capture the ever-shifting,
Right.
multifaceted nature of a human being
within
the confines of 9 dimensions?
It sounds like an impossible task. How do Professor Umbra's students even begin to wrap their heads around that?
Yeah, how do they?
We'll dive into that right after the break. Okay, so we're back in Professor Umbra's classroom at Academia Arcana.
Okay.
And she's just challenged her students to describe a human being in 9 dimensions.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I'm completely hooked.
Yeah, it's a daunting task to be sure.
Right.
But what's so brilliant about Professor Umbra's approach is that she doesn't just throw out these abstract concepts and leave her students floundering.
Okay.
She provides them with a framework for thinking,
Okay.
a set of lenses through which to view the world with greater depth and nuance.
So how do her students even begin to tackle this challenge?
Yeah, how do they even start?
Do they whip out their wands and start casting spells?
Not quite. Remember those detailed lecture notes we're working with?
Yeah.
Professor Umbra documented the entire process,
Okay.
including her students' attempts to grapple with this complex assignment.
Oh, right. So we get a front row seat to their creative process.
Exactly.
Cool.
And what's striking is how quickly they start to grasp the potential of this 9-dimensional perspective.
Okay.
One student, for example, describes seeing a person's past, present, and future all woven together,
Wow.
not as separate moments in time,
Right.
but as a continuous interconnected tapestry.
That's amazing. So they literally saw images from the person's past and future,
Well,
like a movie playing out before their eyes.
that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The student describes it more as a feeling, an intuitive sense of the person's journey through time.
Okay.
They talk about seeing the threads of past experiences shaping the person's present
Right.
and influencing the potential paths they might take in the future.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like we're all carrying our histories with us, both visible and invisible,
Right.
shaping who we are and who we might become.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the incredible complexity of human experience.
Right.
We're not just static beings fixed in time.
Okay.
We're constantly evolving, changing, being shaped by the forces around us.
And this student was able to tap into all of that just by looking at another person?
Well, not just by looking.
Okay.
Remember, Professor Umbra encourages her students to engage all of their senses,
Right.
even their intuition. It's about moving beyond superficial observation
Right.
and connecting with the essence of what it means to be human.
Okay. That makes sense. So what else did this student experience?
They also described seeing the person's connections to the world around them,
Okay.
like invisible threads linking them to the people, places, and experiences that have shaped their lives.
That reminds me of the 6th dimension, relationships.
Yes.
It's like that web we talked about with the apple, but on a much larger scale.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that no one exists in isolation.
Right.
We're all part of a vast, interconnected web of relationships that influence who we are and how we move through the world.
This is starting to sound like a philosophy lecture, but in a good way.
It gets even more fascinating.
Okay.
This student then describes something truly remarkable. How the person's appearance seemed to shift and change depending on who was looking at them.
Wait, what? The person's appearance actually changed?
Not in a literal physical sense,
Okay.
but the student describes it as if everyone who's ever known this person was seeing them simultaneously.
Wow.
And all those different perceptions were layered on top of each other, like a series of superimposed images.
Okay, that's both amazing and a little creepy.
Yeah, the student was understandably overwhelmed by the experience.
Right.
But Professor Umbra reassures them that this is a natural part of perceiving the seventh dimension, perception.
Because everyone perceives the world and the people in it through the lens of their own unique experiences.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why we can never truly know how others see us.
Right.
We are a collection of perceptions, a kaleidoscope of perspectives.
And it challenges us to be more mindful
Yeah.
of how our own perceptions shape our interactions with others.
Okay, this student has already covered time, relationships, and perception.
Right.
What other dimensions did they tap into?
Wow. This is where things get really interesting.
Right.
Even for a magic school.
Right?
The student describes sensing the person's thoughts and memories
Okay.
as if they were swirling around them like a cloud of energy.
So they were literally reading the person's mind.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
They weren't hearing specific thoughts
Right.
or seeing specific memories,
Okay.
but they could sense the emotional undercurrents, the joys and sorrows, the hopes and fears that have shaped this person's inner world. That sounds incredibly intense.
Yeah.
Like getting a glimpse into the very essence of who someone is.
Exactly. And it relates directly to the eighth dimension, consciousness and reflection.
Okay.
Professor Umbra emphasizes that consciousness isn't static or fixed.
Right.
It's a fluid, ever-changing landscape shaped by our experiences, thoughts, and emotions.
It's like we're each carrying around our own internal universe.
Yes.
And this student was able to catch a glimpse of that through some kind of magical empathy.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it highlights the profound connection between art and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we engage with art,
Right.
whether we're creating it or experiencing it,
Yeah.
we're essentially tapping into this vast well of shared human experience.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these dimensions fit together. But what about the ninth dimension, collective knowledge and history?
Right.
How does that factor into this student's experience?
Well, just when you think the student has reached the limits of perception, they describe something even more profound.
Okay.
A sense of the weight of history embodied in this one person.
Wow.
It's as if they're not just an individual,
Right.
but a vessel for all the shared experiences and accumulated knowledge of humanity.
Wow. That sounds incredibly overwhelming, yet somehow beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
Like this person is a living, breathing archive of human experience.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the power of art to connect us across time and culture.
Right.
Because when we engage with art,
Mm-hmm.
we're not just experiencing the vision of a single artist. We're tapping into a vast well of shared human experience that stretches back through the ages.
Okay, so this student has managed to perceive all 9 dimensions in a single person.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, that's where Professor Umbra throws them a real curveball.
Oh. What's that?
Because perceiving these dimensions is just the first step.
Okay.
Now, she wants her students to create art that captures this 9-dimensional perspective.
Wait, what? Create art that exists in 9 dimensions simultaneously? How is
Yeah.
that even possible?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where we'll pick up after the break. Don't touch that dial.
Okay, so we've journeyed through the whimsical world of Professor Umbra's classroom, explored 9 dimensions of art,
Right.
and really had our minds thoroughly boggled. But
Yeah.
now comes the real head-scratcher. Professor Umbra has challenged her students to create art that captures this 9-dimensional perspective,
Right.
which begs the question,
Yeah.
what does 9-dimensional art even look like?
Right. How do you translate such abstract concepts into a tangible form?
That's what I'm wondering. Sadly, Professor Umbra's lecture notes don't exactly provide a step-by-step guide to creating 9-dimensional masterpieces.
And perhaps that's intentional.
Really?
You see, I think Professor Umbra's ultimate lesson isn't about finding the right answer
Okay.
or following a prescribed formula.
It's about the journey, isn't it?
Exactly. It's about pushing the boundaries of our own perception, challenging ourselves to see the world and art
Right.
in new and unexpected ways.
So it's less about the finished product
Yeah.
and more about the process of expanding our understanding of what art can be.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the mystery,
Mhm.
the ambiguity, the sheer possibility of it all.
Okay, I can get on board with that. But let's bring this back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
How do we, as in non-magic school attendees,
Right?
take these 9 dimensions out of Professor Umbra's classroom and apply them to our own lives?
Well, for starters, I think it starts with cultivating a sense of curiosity
Okay.
and openness to new ways of seeing.
Right.
It's about paying attention to the world around us
Mm-hmm.
with a heightened sense of awareness.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Like, how would you apply these 9 dimensions to something in your everyday life?
Yeah.
Imagine you're walking down a busy city street.
Sure.
Instead of just seeing a mass of people and buildings,
Right.
try to see that street through the lens of Professor Umbra's 9 dimensions. Okay, I'm game. Walk me through it.
Consider the history of that street.
Okay.
The generations who walk those same pavements,
Mm-hmm.
the buildings that have stood for centuries, witnessing the ebb and flow of city life.
I'd never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
It's like each brick and cobblestone has a story to tell.
Exactly. Then think about the relationships at play.
Okay.
The intricate web of connections between the people rushing by,
Mm-hmm.
the shopkeepers tending their stores, the buskers sharing their music.
And what about those buildings?
Yeah.
They're not just concrete and steel. They were someone's dream, someone's vision brought to life.
You're getting it?
Okay.
Try to tap into the energy of the street,
All right.
the collective consciousness of all those people going about their day.
Okay.
Their hopes, dreams, anxieties all swirling together.
Whoa. It's like the city itself becomes a living, breathing entity.
And that's just a glimpse of what's possible when you start to see the world through the lens of Professor Umbra's 9 dimensions.
Right.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things,
Mm-hmm.
the layers upon layers of meaning and experience that shape our reality.
This has been an incredible journey. I started this deep dive thinking we'd be talking about brushstrokes and canvases, but we've gone so much deeper than that.
That's the beauty of Professor Umbra's approach.
Yeah.
She reminds us that art isn't confined to museums and galleries.
Right.
It's all around us if we know how to look for it.
So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this deep dive?
I hope it inspires them to step outside their comfort zones,
Okay.
to challenge their perceptions, and to embrace the transformative power of art in all its forms.
Beautifully put. And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with this final thought from Professor Umbra's lecture notes.
Okay.
The world is a canvas far grander than any you could ever imagine. Go forth and create your masterpiece.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Right.
and most importantly, keep looking for those hidden dimensions all around you.